Hi everyone, and welcome to Carmel Unfiltered. I'm Samantha Fulling. In this episode, we're breaking down the 3 Carmel Central School District meetings from May 26, 2026. First, the Audit Facilities and Operations Committee meeting, then the Special Education Support Services and Wellness Committee meeting, and finally, the full Board of Education meeting. This recap follows the meetings in the order I'm covering them here, with timestamps included for each meeting. I'll walk through what was discussed, what was voted on, and what items are expected to come back at future meetings. As always, the goal is to make the meetings easier for you to follow without changing what was said. So let's get into it. So first, the Audit Facilities and Operations Committee meeting. The meeting opened with Vice President John Curzio welcoming everyone. He also thanked President Melissa Orser for sitting in on the committee meeting. Vice President Curzio said there had been a request to add the Pledge of Allegiance to committee meetings. He said he thought the request was a good idea and started the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. After that, at the 41-second mark, they moved into public comment. There was nobody there, so they immediately moved into the insurance loss run. Vice President Curzio turned the discussion over to Assistant Superintendent Ken Silver. The first item was a 10-year loss run. Mr. Silver said that this showed all of the district's losses and property damage and liability going back to 2016. He said that on the last page, the committee could see more than $3 million in losses. The number given was $3,196,000 in losses over the last 10 years. Mr. Silver said that this amount exceeded the premiums the district had paid for insurance during that period. He also said that while NYSER was not proposing to drop the district, they were talking about a substantial increase in premiums. The district did not yet have the new premium amount, but had filled out the applications and renewal information. Mr. Silver said the district was working with the consultant that had been approved by the board last year to see whether there was any alternative to NYSER, though he said he did not believe it would work out as anything other than staying where they are. He also explained that the district had allocated some insurance costs to areas that are aidable, such as transportation. Previously, insurance costs had not been placed in transportation, so the district did not receive state aid on that portion. The district also allocated part of the insurance cost to the cafeteria budget based on the square footage of the cafeterias and kitchens compared to the district's total square footage. At the 3-minute 12-second mark, the next item was health insurance data. Mr. Silver said the document showed the health insurance rates and what each union is paying for the health insurance for the 2026-27 school year. He noted that the CTA amount remained the same because the contract is currently under negotiation. The amount listed for the CTA remained at the current 16.5%. During this part of the discussion, President Orser raised a concern about the document in front of the committee. She asked whether the information was public or whether it was supposed to be redacted because there were people's names attached. After that concern was raised, the response was that the document would be collected. Mr. Silver then continued and said the second page showed the actual rates the district would pay next year. He said it came to a 6% overall rate increase with a change in the prescription rate as well. At the 5-minute 27-second mark, the next item was debt service. Mr. Silver said the document showed how much debt the district actually has and what the district is paying on each bond. He said that next year, for the 27-28 school year, about $1.9 million would come off debt services. He also said the district has $22 million in actual debt and a debt limit of $55 million. When asked how much falls off in the 26-27 school year, Mr. Silver said a little over $600,000 had fallen off and was used to make the budget work. At the 6-minute 17-second mark, the next item was district comparative data. Mr. Silver said the data showed various school district budgets, percentage tax increases, budget increases, spending increases, and poverty levels in the area. The discussion on this was brief, and the committee then moved on. They jumped right into the next item of the driver education RFP. Mr. Silver said the district is doing an RFP for driver's ed and that he was editing it at the time of the meeting. He said that apparently the district had not done an RFP for driver's education in a long time, and the contract was simply signed year to year. The RFP would be for the period beginning September 1st. However, because the district has a driver's education program that runs from June into July, the district would allow that summer program to continue under the existing contract. The new contract process would begin with the September time period. At the 8-minute 3-second mark, the next item up was UPK. Mr. Silver said UPK aid analysis showed the district receiving $10,000 per child for the next school year. He said the state was estimating the district would receive a little over $2 million in UPK aid. He also said that, as previously discussed, the UPK providers would provide lunch for all children at all of the sites. Vice President Curzio asked where the $10,000 figure was coming from, whether it was from the executive budget, the legislative budget, or another source. Mr. Silver said that while the state budget was not yet enacted, the state had continued to send the district documents showing the $10,000 figure. He also said the district was being told there was a change in foundation aid, with Carmel receiving about $125,000 more than previously expected. The foundation aid increase was described as going from 1.7% to 2.2%. Mr. Silver said that this was now the third and fourth time the state had told the district the UPK number was $10,000. He said the district was determined not to have a loss like it had the prior year. He said that he was ready to do the UPK contracts, but would not actually sign them until the state budget was enacted. Superintendent Michael Plotkin said he believes in the UPK program and that the district would like to make it as tax neutral as possible. He also said that for a district like Carmel to have UPK without a lottery, while other districts have lotteries and families feel excluded, is something the district should be proud of. Mr. Silver reiterated that he would not sign contracts with UPK providers until he knew for sure that the district was receiving that money, and he said the district was planning to have a zero expense for taxpayers. At the 11-minute 31-second mark, the next item was the scoreboard and the playground resolutions. These were described as long-standing grants that had finally come to fruition. One of the grants was described as going back all the way to 2019. A question was raised about whether these grants require the district to front the money and then be reimbursed. Mr. Silver confirmed that they do. The scoreboard was described as approximately $53,000, and the playground grants were described as approximately $50,000 each for 2 schools. When asked where the money would come from, Mr. Silver said it could come from the capital fund or the general fund and that it would be reimbursed when the money came back. He said the district would probably take it from the capital fund so it would not touch the general fund. Superintendent Plotkin clarified that the playgrounds were inclusive playgrounds, meaning they are for children who cannot use regular playgrounds or who have difficulty with regular playground equipment. The comparison was made to Julie's Jungle and the accessible playground at Town of Kent Hall. At the 13-minute 41-second mark, the next item was the overlap between the outgoing and incoming food service director, and the discussion was very brief. At the 3-minute 56-second mark, the next item was the internal audit. Mr. Silver said that the district had an internal audit done with some findings, and the district was responding to those findings. He said the internal audit would probably be brought to the board at the next meeting for review. Silver said the district wanted the corrective action plan attached before presenting it to the board. He explained that what the district had received was a draft from the auditor. The district then makes comments, the auditor issues a final audit, the district prepares a corrective action plan, and then the whole thing is presented to the board. He said that at some point after that, the board would be asked to approve it, and then it goes to the state website. At the 14-minute 39-second mark, the committee then moved to the line of duty, death, police, widow, or widower tax exemption. Mr. Silver explained that this would provide a tax exemption for the widow or widower of a police officer killed in the line of duty. He said the exemption could be up to 50% of the assessment for school property tax purposes. The board would need to decide whether it wanted to adopt the exemption, and if so, whether it wanted to grant the full 50% exemption or something less. Mr. Silver also said that they had looked into whether remarriage affected eligibility, and he said it did not. So if someone is a widow or widower and remarries, they would still be entitled to keep their exemption. He also said that if someone moves into the community as a widow or widower, they would still be entitled to the exemption, and they do not have to have lived in the district at the time of the loss. Vice President Curzio thanked Mr. Silver for working so hard on this issue and said that he had been able to track down resolutions from 2 Long Island school districts that had passed similar exemptions. Vice President Curzio also said, based on the communication with other school districts and state legislative offices, the remarriage language appeared to be intentional by the legislator. He also compared the residency issue to other exemptions, such as the expanded veterans exemption. The person did not have to serve while living in Carmel Central School District, but if they become a resident later on of the district and qualify, they are eligible. Vice President Curzio also noted that a public hearing would be required if the board chose to adopt the exemption. He said that, in his recollection, every other exemption the board had passed, including volunteer firefighter, volunteer EMS, expanded veterans, and Cold War veterans exemptions, had been approved at the highest exemption level. He said he would be supportive of recommending the full 50% exemption. The committee then discussed a possible timeline. June 9th was mentioned as a possible public hearing date, with the possibility that the board could vote the same night or at a later meeting. I do want to add, I am recording this on Saturday, May 30th, and I did just see Vice President Curzio post on Facebook earlier today that this will be discussed at the June 9th meeting. It was also noted that the exemption would not apply for the upcoming tax year because the deadline had already passed, but could apply going forward. The committee agreed to recommend the 50% exemption to the full board and asked the board to schedule a public hearing. At the 20-minute, 21-second mark, the committee then moved to unused capital account funds recommended for projects. Silver said the first page showed a total of approximately $687,000. He explained that these were items budgeted through the years under capital projects and the budget itself. He said the district had $850,000 in the current year budget line for capital projects and was spending that money on the projects that it said it would. But these older funds came from projects that had been budgeted in prior years and never completed. Mr. Silver said the money went into what he called an unused reserve account, though he clarified it was not a capital reserve account. President Orser asked how far back the funds went and whether the district knew what some of the larger amounts had originally been for. Silver said it went back to around 2021, maybe 2019, or even 2020, and said the district had the detail and would provide it. Silver then explained some of the projects that had already been approved or completed from those funds. The board had approved about $253,000 for Healy Electric to do emergency generators at the elementary schools. He said the prior generators could not do much more than maybe a refrigerator and could not keep the lights or heating system on. He also said the district replaced fire alarm panels at 2 schools where the panels were out of date and not repairable. The district also did boiler controls in the 1929 wing, and the district air-conditioned the bus garage for the first time so employees could work there in the summer without keeping the large doors open. As of May 20th, Mr. Silver said there was approximately $292,000 left. At the 24-minute, 10-second mark, the first proposed project was air conditioning in the guidance section at George Fisher Middle School. The proposed amount was $136,000. The current units were described as feedback units or heating and ventilation units installed in 2005 with the Excel project. They were described as antiquated and beyond their useful life. Some worked, some did not. The project would replace those units with ductless units. President Orser asked whether student areas had already been prioritized before doing an air conditioning in the guidance area. The response was that approximately 95% of George Fisher Middle School is already air conditioned. It was stated that the guidance area is one of the areas not yet covered and that the building would not need to close due to heat because most of the student areas are air conditioned. At the 25-minute, 8-second mark, the next project involved the high school man trap and related $100,000 staircase project. Mr. Silver said that the $100,000 project in the budget for the upper staircase going from the track to the softball field. He explained that in order to do a project like this, the district has to have at least $10,000 of work inside the building. And he said the district cannot do site work without $10,000 inside the building. The inside building work was connected to a man trap at the high school. Mr. Silver said the bid for the project came in at approximately $181,600, but only $100,000 could be done from the one project. So the project was separated into two projects with the state. The $100,000 in the budget would cover the upper staircase and the required $10,000 inside work. The remaining balance would complete the man trap. Mr. Silver said they had thought about trying to use the safety and security bond, but the bond was written too tightly to use for this purpose. President Orser asked if more detail could be brought back to the next committee meeting. Mr. Silver said the item was on the board agenda that night and that delaying it could prevent the staircase work from getting done. At the 29-minute 13-second mark, the next project was more air conditioning. Mr. Silver said that the district wanted for years to air condition the fourth floor of the high school. For years. He described the fourth floor as the hot pocket of the district, saying it reaches the heat thresholds quickly and students have to be moved out. The recommendation was to air condition 10 rooms on the fourth floor of the high school. I just want to say, I don't ever recall having to leave school when we were dying in this hot box. So I'm kind of envious that these kids do get moved out when it gets hot, because that floor was, it was sweltering. It was a sauna. He also said the district wanted to air condition 3 rooms in each of the 3 elementary schools as part of the same funding. These would be window units. Mr. Silver explained that installing systems requiring compressors on the roof or elsewhere in the building would be cost prohibitive for the immediate need. He said that if a future bond included more air conditioning work, that could be a longer-term way to remove window units over time. But that process would take a couple of years for approvals, architectural drawings, and bids. Mr. Silver said this idea was the quick fix. And he said Mark Earl had assured him the district had sufficient power for the work, though the elementary school's power was described as razor thin. At the 32-minute 52-second mark, the next item on the agenda was related to the bus drivers. Mr. Silver said the district had been having difficulty getting drivers and getting drivers to stay. He said the board had previously approved a $1,000 bonus for people who stay for a year. The board had also approved paying for training hours and fingerprinting. Mr. Silver said the district needs more drivers. He explained that when drivers call in, dispatchers, supervisors, or mechanics end up driving buses, and if mechanics are driving buses, buses are not getting fixed. Superintendent Plotkin said the district's upcoming contract would raise the hiring salary to a little over $27 an hour. He also said that this is not just a Carmel issue, it is a state and national issue. Superintendent Plotkin said that after-school activities are being canceled due to transportation issues, and the district does not want that. Mr. Silver said the district was proposing a $1,000 signing bonus for drivers, but not immediately upon hire. The driver would need to remain employed for a certain number of months. There was a discussion of whether that should be 4, 5, or 6 months. Superintendent Plotkin also discussed the need for a marketing campaign to recruit drivers in Putnam County and Southern Dutchess. The committee supported moving forward with the language for a signing bonus, with the timeline still to be determined. At the 41-minute 6-second mark, Vice President Curzio asked if any committee members had any other business. President Orser commented on the state budget update and said she liked hearing the continued mention of the $10,000 per UPK student. There was also a brief discussion of the electric bus requirement being delayed by 5 years. The next committee meeting was announced for June 9th. All right, next we are going to talk about the Special Education, Support Services, and Wellness Committee meeting. Initially, they were waiting for a second board member to get there so that they could officially start. So the meeting actually starts at the 45-second mark. A public commenter raised a concern about virtual learning and IEPs. The comment was that as the district goes through annual reviews, it may be helpful to include language in students' IEPs about what supports look like if the district has to go viral. The commenter referenced snow-related virtual delays from the school year and also mentioned the possibility of virtual instruction if the heat becomes an issue. The concern was that not all IEP supports transfer easily into a virtual setting. Examples included a student needing a reader for tests, repeated instruction, support during assignments, extended time, redirection, or clarification about whether a student should email the teacher later or receive help in another way. Trustee Wise said that he thought it was a good question and said several parents had reached out to the board with similar concerns. I lied. The actual meeting starts at 4 minutes and 23 seconds after Trustee Jordy Douglas arrives. So Trustee Wise formally called the May 26th meeting of the Special Ed Committee to order, and Trustee Wise said the focus of the agenda would be the follow-up from the prior meeting regarding Best Buddies. Specifically, the committee was looking at the hurdles to providing a Best Buddies program in all 3 elementary schools and integrating that with how Best Buddies is handled in the middle and high school. So at the 4-minute 57 mark, Trustee Wise asked whether there were any further public comments. Another commenter raised a concern about fencing at the Kent campuses. The comment focused on autism elopement concerns and line of sight supervision. The commenter said that there were broken areas of the fencing beyond the wooded area and areas where staff may have trouble keeping sight of children at all times. The commenter said that a child could go from Kent Primary across the campus toward Kent Elementary and then toward the debusing area. The commenter also referenced concerns about the nearby busy road and occasional wildlife alerts, including bears and coyotes. At the 7-minute 3-second mark, Trustee Wise then turned the discussion over to Director of Pupil Services Jenna Rocca and Assistant Director of Pupil Services Alexandra Chanowski. They presented information about the Best Buddies at the elementary level. The program was described as a school-based friendship program designed to promote social inclusion and reduce isolation for students with intellectual and developmental disabilities. The stated goals included meaningful, inclusive relationships, empathy, acceptance, social and emotional learning, and a welcoming environment. They explained that Carmel already has 2 established Best Buddies chapters, one at the middle school and one at the high school. They also noted that Carmel hosted its first Best Buddies Friendship Walk last year, and again this past May with support from SEPTO. At the 8-minute 7-second mark, one of the questions from the prior meeting was how Best Buddies is contractually managed at all schools. The presentation explained that the middle and high school have official Best Buddies programs, and the district is looking to bring the model to all 3 elementary schools. Each elementary school would need its own chapter. Each elementary school would also need 1 to 2 staff members to serve as advisors. There would also need to be an agreement form for each elementary school activating a chapter. The current middle and high school model includes 1 teacher stipend and 1 teaching assistant stipend for each respective program. There was a discussion that if the same model were replicated across the 3 elementary schools, it could require additional staff advisors. It was also stated that there is no cost to open a chapter and no cost for students to join. At the 10-minute 18-second mark, the presentation then moved to membership. Every student who participates is required to complete a Best Buddies membership application. The application covers Best Buddies general liability insurance. It was described as a basic application form with information such as name and emergency contact, as well as a parent or guardian consent. Advisors also receive access to the Best Buddies 360, which was described as the hub of the Best Buddies program and onboarding process. Best Buddies 360 is where advisors review updates, submit updates, review matches, plan events, and look at historical data. The presenter said that this portal helps distinguish Best Buddies from more informal friendship groups. At the 11-minute 29-second mark, the presentation then moved to training and onboarding. Best Buddies 360 includes training opportunities. Memberships are recommended to be completed by November 1st. Virtual training for advisors is offered once a year, either in August or September. Advisors must complete a leadership application each year they participate. The presenters also said Best Buddies recommends monthly meetings, inclusive club design for all students, regular communication with local staff, and an end-of-the-year report by June 1st. The report would outline chapter wins, challenges, and goals. The Hudson Valley region was described as starting a monthly community event, and the regional contact was said to be excited that Carmel was looking into an elementary program. At the 12-minute 41-second mark, the next question was whether there is a stipend in the CTA contract for Best Buddies. The presenter said that there is currently a stipend funded through the IDEA 611 grant. The amount discussed for 2 teacher stipends was approximately $2,500 combined, though they noted they would need to confirm the details. They also discussed that if 2 people co-chair, they may split the stipend. The estimate discussed was around $1,200 to $1,300 per chair, depending on how the rule was structured. Later in the conversation, Trustee Wise estimated that the full district implementation might be slightly over $10,000 if each elementary building required about $3,600. The presenter said they would need to speak more with current advisors because existing programs have also used donations and established relationships. At the 13-minute 42-second mark, the next question was whether September implementation for all schools was feasible. The presenter said the next steps included completing applications, meeting with elementary principals, explaining the program to building administrators, talking with staff, seeing whether staff are interested in serving as advisors, and coordinating with Best Buddies of the Hudson Valley. They said they were working on setting up a virtual meeting with administrators and the Best Buddies affiliate. Based on communication so far, they said Best Buddies believe September implementation was feasible with the right building support. At the 15-minute 59-second mark, a question was asked about whether Best Buddies would be brought up to parents during annual reviews or during the MTSS process when a student may need more support. The response was yes. The presenter said it would be a good conversation to have during annual reviews. They said that it would be important to educate building level staff, principals, and school psychologists because those staff members may be the first people receiving parent questions. Janaraka also said the PPS department had discussed presenting administrative counsel to give an overview of PPS, including the nuances of the department, struggles families may go through, and opportunities for students. At the 19-minute 40-second mark, a question was asked about the vetting process for general education students who want to participate. The response was that the Best Buddies helps guide that process. Students have to apply and complete membership materials. There was also discussion that the application includes a background-style questionnaire, not a background check, to help students understand that participation is a responsibility and should be taken seriously. At the 21-minute 6-second mark, a question was asked about when the program would run. The answer was that it could be before school, during school, or after school, depending on the building and advisor. There was a discussion about whether it would be a pull-out, push-in, during specials, during lunch, during recess, or after school. A concern was raised that after-school programming may require one-to-one support for some students, creating additional costs and staffing needs. The presenters noted that at the middle and high school level, the district already provides support such as a TA or a CISA for access to after-school activities when needed. But elementary schools do not typically have after-school activities in the same way. There was a discussion that lunchtime specials or another part of the school day may be a better fit at the elementary level. At the 25-minute 34-second mark, the discussion then moved to existing buddy-style programs. One existing program at Kent was described as fourth graders visiting PACE programs during the school day. This included activities during class time, recess, math, reading, and art projects. There was also a discussion that a similar effort had been attempted at Matthew Patterson a couple of years earlier, but it did not move forward. The committee discussed the importance of uniformity and equity across all elementary schools. The point was made that one school may be doing something well, but that does not mean all schools are offering the same opportunity. There was also a discussion that the Best Buddies should not only be for students in PACE. A parent said that based on their personal experience, their children with IEPs had not been approached about participating in the Best Buddies, and that the program appeared to be focused mainly on PACE students. President Orser asked whether the district could get data about who is currently in the Best Buddies program at the middle school and how information is shared. She also said there are students with 504 plans or other needs who may want to be part of the program. President Orser said, quote, "You shouldn't need to have an IEP to be a person in need of a friend." The presenter said they could gather data and look into how students are being reached. At the 29-minute 5-second mark, Trustee Wise asked that by the next committee meeting, the district came back with a clearer roadmap. The roadmap should include whether meetings with principals have happened, whether advisors have been identified or recruited, whether the program can happen during the school day, and what other elementary Best Buddies programs are doing. President Orser also asked for examples of schools that already have an elementary Best Buddies program. The presenters said that they could ask the Best Buddies representative to connect Carmel with schools already doing this work. At the 35-minute, 23-second mark, Trustee Wise closed out the meeting and said that it will meet again in 4 weeks, which is June 9th, and they should have a clearer picture of the district's options. Okay, now on to the Board of Education meeting for the night of May 26, 2026. The Board of Education meeting opened at the Kent Elementary School. President Orser called the meeting to order. She asked the district clerk, Joanne Stevens, for a roll call, including the student ex officio members. Present were Vice President John Curzio, trustees Jordy Douglas, Frank Grasso, Nicholas Magliano, President Orser, trustees Michael Torpy, and Jim Wise. And there were 2 ex officio members also present. Excuse me, I had Applebee's for dinner and I'm like dying over here. At the 1 minute, 1 second mark, the board recessed into executive session. After returning, President Orser moved to agenda item 1.04. Introduced Miss Madison and the Kent Elementary 4th graders. The students led the Pledge of Allegiance and then performed the national anthem. After that, the students performed another song, which they introduced by saying, "Our next song doesn't need an introduction. We are sure you will remember it." They also joked that Miss Madison told them it was popular in the 1900s. The students then performed time after time. President Orser thanked the 4th graders on behalf of the Board of Education and also thanked Miss Weltman and Miss Madison for inviting the board to Kent. At the 11-minute, 33-second mark, the board then moved to student recognition. President Orser invited Steve Valley forward to present the Putnam County Youth Award recognition. Mr. Valley recognized a student named Sean. I will be leaving his last name out. He described Sean as an exceptional student whose service, leadership, and academic excellence reflect the best of the school community. Sean was honored at the 2026 Putnam County Youth Bureau Awards dinner for volunteer work throughout Putnam County. Mr. Valley highlighted Sean's involvement in Boy Scouts, conservation projects, Eagle Scout projects, 4-H, Drum Corps, local parades, and Revolutionary War and Civil War reenactments. He also said Sean is an honors student enrolled in Honors English, Honors Algebra 2, and Honors Global History, with plans to take multiple AP courses the following school year. Sean then joined the board for photos. At the 15-minute, 40-second mark, President Orser then invited Kaylee Thomas, World Language Department Chair and Biliteracy Coordinator, forward to recognize students earning the New York State Seal of Biliteracy. Ms. Thomas said the students had earned the highest distinction in the World Language Department. She explained that the students demonstrated advanced language proficiency through year-long research on a meaningful topic conducted entirely in the target language. Students gathered evidence through authentic sources, interviews, written communication, and media in the language before presenting it to an independent panel of judges. Ms. Thomas said the district began its biliteracy journey in 2018 with 9 recipients. This year, the district celebrated 31 recipients, earning 37 medals in French, Italian, Spanish, and Polish. Students were then called forward to receive their medals. The board also recognized the staff involved in supporting the program. At the 24-minute, 27-second mark, the board then moved to the student report. One of the ex officio members gave the update. She discussed the final days of the 2026 school year and recognized students, athletes, and members of the school community. The report included senior students in the PNW BOCES fashion program, displaying their designs in the senior showcase, spring athletes receiving league and section recognition, seniors celebrating Decision Day on May 1st, the upcoming senior awards ceremony at George Fisher Middle School, spring concerts for orchestra, wind ensemble, and choir, students earning the New York State Seal of Biliteracy, the Carmel Science Research Program Symposium, seniors taking a trip to Broadway to see The Great Gatsby. I'm so jealous. Senior week events including Senior Ball on June 10th, yearbook distribution on June 12th, and the Senior Barbecue on June 16th, and the Unified Sports Team's final game. At the 26-minute 59-second mark, the board then moved to open session. The first public speaker invited the board, district, and community to a free event on June 6th at the Putnam Memorial Veterans Park to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the United States. He said the event would include more than 150 reenactors, people from different 18th century trades, and skits involving figures such as Enoch Crosby and Sybil Ludington. He said signs were going up and emails had been sent out. He also joked and said, quote, "And we're not all crazy, and yes, this uniform is hot." You'd have to look at the actual meeting to get the reference. At the 29-minute 5-second mark, the next speaker, she is a regular at the podium. She said that she had a list of recent district-related events to go through. She began with the Multicultural Fair. She thanked students, families, staff, performers, vendors, and community members who came together to celebrate the many cultures in the community. She said it was the biggest turnout yet. She then gave a SEPTO shout out to John Fratto for his support, dedication, inclusion, and partnership. She said that since Mr. Fratto stepped into his role as George Fisher Middle School principal, SEPTO had received fewer complaints about children's IEPs, fewer complaints about lack of email responses, and had more sensory rooms available at events within George Fisher Middle School. She also thanked Elizabeth Kennedy, saying SEPTO would always appreciate the progress made together for students and families. She also discussed the Carmel Central School District SEPTO Recognition Awards, Troop Inspire 1234, coming together at Patterson Veterans Memorial Park for their third annual planting event. She thanked those who joined, volunteered, planted, painted, and supported the event. She also recognized Memorial Day and the families of those who made the ultimate sacrifice. Finally, she discussed Childhood Apraxia Awareness Day, which was May 14th. She described childhood apraxia of speech as a motor speech disorder that affects a child's ability to clearly say sounds, syllables, and words. She closed by encouraging awareness, support, kindness, patience, and inclusion. At the 36-minute 20-second mark, the board then moved into board comments. Trustee Jim Wise asked to be recognized for the purpose of making a motion. He said he had a second motion after that. The first motion was in recognition of Memorial Day. Trustee Wise said that the first Memorial Day was observed in 1865 when the formerly enslaved Black population of Charleston, South Carolina came together, 10,000 strong, to provide proper burials and grave decorations for 247 Union soldiers who had been buried in a mass grave. The motion also stated that Congress officially recognized Memorial Day in 1868 to honor members of the U.S. Armed Forces killed in the line of duty. Trustee Wise noted that Memorial Day is distinct from Veterans Day and Armed Forces Day. The motion recognized the first death in service of what would become the United States as Ensign Robert Monroe of the Lexington Militia, killed April 19, 1775, on Lexington Green. The motion also named Staff Sergeant Benjamin N. Pennington as the most recent death in the service to the United States, killed March 8, 2026, at Prince Sultan Royal Saudi Air Force Base in Saudi Arabia. The motion stated that 559,338 members of the armed services of the United States had made the ultimate sacrifice between those two men. Trustee Wise then read the names of Carmel alumni who had died in service, including names from World War II, the Korean War, and the Vietnam War. The motion called on all present to observe a moment of silence. The motion was seconded, passed, and a moment of silence was observed. At the 40-minute 37-second mark, Trustee Wise then introduced a second motion. This motion recognized Peace Officers Memorial Day. The motion stated that in 1962, Congress declared May 15th Peace Officers Memorial Day to recognize members of law enforcement who gave their lives in the line of duty. The motion also recognized that one of the most vital duties of law enforcement is protecting schools and the children, teachers, and staff inside them. The motion noted that Carmel is served by school resource officers at the high school and middle school and will soon be protected by special patrol officers at the elementary buildings. The motion named two law enforcement professionals charged with protecting schools who died in the line of duty that year. Rick Haggard, school resource officer at Shannon Elementary School in Lead County, Mississippi, and Amin Abdullah, special protection officer at the Elementary School of the Islamic Center of San Diego. The motion called on all present to observe a minute of silence in honor of those who made the ultimate sacrifice protecting school children. The motion was seconded, passed, and a moment of silence was observed. President Orser then asked School Resource Officer Charlie Johnson to stand. The room applauded. President Orser thanked Mr. Johnson for everything he does for the schools, the board, administration, and staff, and asked him to share the board's gratitude with his fellow officers. If you've never met Officer Charlie, you are missing out on a really cool dude. Officer Charlie is the GOAT. All the kids will tell you they love him. At the 44-minute, 12-second mark, Vice President Curzio then spoke about Memorial Day as well. He thanked Trustee Wise for bringing forward the 2 resolutions. Vice President Curzio said that he asked Trustees Frank Grasso and Michael Torpy to help read about 3 Carmel alumni who made the supreme sacrifice. The purpose was to bring their stories to life and ensure they remain more than names on a plaque. Trustee Torpy read about 2nd Lieutenant William Mull Jr. Trustee Grasso then read about Sergeant John J. Cook. Vice President Curzio then read about Corporal James C. Foster Jr. Vice President Curzio also noted that Carmel High School teacher Ray Monroe and coaches Smith and Collins carried the coffin of their former student to his final resting place. Oh, I'm gonna cry. I almost cried watching that. He also said the Carmel High School yearbook was dedicated to Corporal Foster in 1968. Vice President Curzio closed with a quote from President Ronald Reagan's June 6, 1984, Normandy anniversary speech. Quote, "We will always remember. We will always be proud. We will always be prepared so we may always be free." At the 54-minute, 29-second mark, Superintendent Michael Plotkin began his report with 2 brief items before turning the presentation over to Dr. Jeff Gorman. First, he thanked the community for coming out to vote the previous Tuesday. He said the district had a historic night with about 62% of the community approving the budget. He said the board and district would continue working to make sure every dollar is well spent and students are taken care of. He said that he would like more of the community to participate in voting, and said that there are approximately 21,000 eligible voters and about 2,100 people voted, which is only 10%. Fucking atrocious, guys. Get it together, Carmel. Superintendent Plotkin connected voting to the freedoms discussed earlier in the meeting and encouraged more participation in future elections. At the 56-minute, 20-second mark, Superintendent Plotkin then discussed New York State Education Law 409-N. He said he had sent out a communication the prior week about state law requirements related to heat advisories and warming buildings. He said every measure would be made to keep schools open, keep staff and students comfortable, and take proactive measures year after year to keep buildings suitable. He said building principals, buildings and grounds, and facility staff were aware of the protocols to keep schools open. He also said his communication had included the possibility of modifying student schedules and an extreme heat day, considering other options including remote learning. But he did emphasize that remote learning is not something anyone wants to do. He said the district wants students in the buildings where they can get lunch and learn together. At the 58-minute, 49-second mark, Assistant Superintendent Jeff Gorman then gave an update on the District Improvement Plan process, or DIP. He said Trustee Wise had asked a couple of weeks earlier for an update. Dr. Gorman said that according to NYSED, the district has 2 schools on the accountability list, George Fisher Middle School and Matthew Patterson Elementary School. He explained that the ATSI stands for Additional Targeted Support and Improvement. He said it focuses on specific student subgroups that are consistently underperforming. For George Fisher Middle School, he said this was the first year of ATSI designation and that it was connected to the district being in the lower 10% in educating its ELL population. He said that if the school continued on that path, it had 3 years to get out of that status before moving closer to receivership. For Matthew Patterson Elementary School, the targeted subgroup was special education. Dr. Gorman said Matthew Patterson had made good improvements this year and remained in TSI. He said if Matthew Patterson has 1 more year of improvements, it will be off the list. At the 1 hour, 48-second mark, Dr. Gorman then explained the district comprehensive improvement process. He said the district was required to hold 4 meetings with district employees and had a coach at NYSED. The process includes a district analysis of leadership, an equity analysis, and a vision statement. He said the DIP process is district-wide processes for all students regardless of their specific designations at Matthew Patterson and George Fisher. He described the DIP as the quote-unquote why and the school level plans as the quote-unquote what and how. At the 1 hour, 2 minute, 15-second mark, Dr. Gorman then discussed the equity analysis. He said the state provides equity pieces for review, and 2 anomalies stood out. The first was at George Fisher Middle School, where there was an inequity in the number of social workers and counselors connected to students when compared to that of the high school or elementary schools. The second was the absence of ELL learners at Kent Elementary School. Those became the 2 DIP goals set in motion for this year and the following year. At the 1 hour, 3 minute, 10-second mark, Dr. Gorman then reviewed the work happening at Matthew Patterson. The focus there had been on inclusive education for all students, which matches the identified subgroup of special education. He said that this was the second year of working with a consultant focused on coaching cycles. He also discussed strengthening Tier 1 instruction, restorative practices, and attendance. At George Fisher Middle School, Dr. Gorman said the focus is equity and access. He described that as providing grade-level instruction for all students and scaffolding up for the needs of different groups of students. He also said the district had been looking at communication at the middle school, including communication with parents, students, and staff. Attendance tracking was also discussed as one of the indicators connected to accountability status. Dr. Gorman named 5 indicators connected to the status. 1, core subject performance. 2, weighted average achievement. 3, attendance. 4, year-to-year growth. And 5, ELP data for English language proficiency. At the 1 hour, 6 minute, 23-second mark, Dr. Gorman said the board had approved a director of multilingual programs about a month earlier. He said the final interviews had taken place that morning, and a recommendation would be brought to the board at the June 9th meeting. He also said that because of the district status, there are federal funds available to support the work. He said this comes from school improvement grant funding and does not impact the general budget. Dr. Gorman said the district was close to $325,000 in Title I funds for the district, school, and students in those schools. He said the district would hold meetings in June about how to allocate those title funds, and one priority would be maintaining the coaching piece. At the 1 hour, 7 minute, 49-second mark, Dr. Gorman then discussed the district's work related to equity at Kent Elementary and Kent Primary. He said the district is transitioning K-2 multilingual learners who reside in Kent Elementary Zone back to their home school. He said the district had identified about 24 to 26 multilingual learners projected in grades K through 3 at Kent Elementary for next year. Staffing adjustments would be designed to meet the regulations of CR Part 154. Dr. Gorman said the next year's 4th graders would remain where they are because they have already had that experience all the way through. He also said the district was not, quote, lock solid, meaning if a parent says they want their child to stay where they are, the district would consider that on an individual basis. He said this transition would not cause a staffing increase. The work would include family outreach, translations, communications, scheduling, staff alignment, professional development, transportation coordination, and ongoing student monitoring. Dr. Gorman said he believed that inequity would go away by the following year. At the 1 hour, 9 minute, 27-second mark, Dr. Gorman then discussed dual language. He said the district was in final interviews for teachers at Matthew Patterson and Kent Elementary. The program would be in kindergarten and 1st grade, growing from kindergarten into 1st grade. He said the district expects interest from both ELL and non-ELL families. He said the district would use a lottery system while still meeting the needs of English language learners. Dr. Gorman described the program as a rich program and said students receive 50% of instruction in English and 50% in Spanish. He also said it would be a good idea for the board to eventually walk through and see the program once it was up and running. At the 1 hour, 10 minute, 50-second mark, Dr. Gorman then discussed the Avid Excel at the middle school. He said Avid Excel is a subgroup of Avid for ELL learners. He said Avid Excel focuses on 5 tenets: reading, writing, academic vocabulary, oral language, and self-determination and leadership. He said the program is geared toward long-term ELL students. He described characteristics of these students, including that they may have good ideas but need help expressing them, may need multiple repetitions for mastery, may complete assignments with added support, may like school but become discouraged, and may absorb some information but not all. He said implementation requires a whole team of educators and includes a standalone elective class. The elective would replace world language at the middle school because the students are already native speakers. He said it is intended for 7th and 8th graders and possibly 6th grade long-term ELL students. It is a 2-year program. At the high school level, the support continues through Avid rather than Avid XL. Students have to apply for the program. There has to be a formal outreach, and parents have to sign a contract and make the commitment. The district planned to hold an outreach on June 10th. Dr. Gorman also said a team would attend an out-of-state summer institute funded through the Title II grants. At the 1 hour, 14-minute, 50-second mark, after the presentation, Dr. Gorman took questions. Trustee Grasso asked about self-determination and leadership in Avid XL. Dr. Gorman explained that the curriculum focuses on student agency, oral language, reflection, executive functioning, study skills, organizing, tutor groups, and inquiry-based learning. Trustee Grasso also asked what support for other disciplines such as math would look like. Dr. Gorman gave Cornell notes as one example of an Avid strategy that can be used across all subject areas. He also described a tutorial referral process where students identify a problem, key vocabulary, and what they do and do not understand. They then work through it using inquiry-based learning. Trustee Wise then asked how the district would measure the progress. Dr. Gorman said the district would monitor the 5 indicators he had already described. He also said the district would use school comprehensive education plan teams and building learning meetings. Dr. Gorman said he and Superintendent Plotkin had started meeting with principals and reviewing student data to monitor progress throughout the year. Trustee Wise also asked about the state's role, funding, and consequences if the district does not address the issue. Dr. Gorman said Carmel's state status does not match Carmel schools and said the district does not belong on lists like this. He also acknowledged that the district is currently designated in the lower 10% of the state in educating ELL students. Superintendent Plotkin added that the state designation is not an indictment of the Carmel Central School District, but the district owns the work. Trustee Douglas asked how staff would be chosen for Avid XL. Dr. Gorman said it is a voluntary process and that the middle school E&L department had been understaffed. He said the district had hired 2 new teachers and that there was an interest from the English and math department chairs, as well as the principal and assistant principal. At the 1 hour, 30-minute, 13-second mark before ending the superintendent's report, Superintendent Plotkin gave a shout out to the 2 chorus groups. He said he had seen the chamber chorus group and the Bella Voce perform at the Memorial Day event, and he thanked Mr. Lynch and the student groups for their performance. At the 1 hour, 30-minute, 48-second mark, the board then moved to the consent agenda. President Orser read the motion to approve the consent agenda. Trustee Wise asked Mr. Silver to speak about Item 4.05, the annual RIC Operations Center. Mr. Silver explains that the district subscribes to the Regional Information Center Operations Center related to safety and security. He said it provides network advantages, including helping keeping out phishing and other malicious activity, and supporting privacy, data management, and security. Trustee Wise also thanked the administration for the cover letter on Item 4.09, the outlay program for the high school. The consent agenda then moved forward. At the 1 hour, 53-minute, 12-second mark, the board realized that it had skipped Item 5.03, acceptance of the budget vote and board member election results. So President Orser moved back to that item. The resolution was to accept the results of the May 19, 2026 budget vote and board member election. Vice President Curzio thanked voters for supporting what he had described as a historic tax levy cut. He said it was the first tax levy cut in the history of Carmel Central School District. He also congratulated Trustee Jordy Douglas and newcomer Dan Manieri on their election to the board. He congratulated Jacob Yunt, Elizabeth Alvarez, and Trustee Jim Wise on a spirited campaign. He thanked Trustee Wise for 3 years of service on the board. At the 1 hour, 52 minute, 3 second mark, the board also discussed the Inclusive Playground Grant. Vice President Curzio compared the planned playgrounds to Julie's Jungle in East Fishkill and the accessible playground at Kent Town Hall. President Orser thanked Marie Camacho for her work on the grant and Senator Pete Harcum for his involvement. At the 2 hour, 42 second mark, the board discussed the high school staircase project. It was clarified that this project involved the upper staircase going from the track down toward the softball field. It was also clarified that this was not the prior staircase project at the 1929 original girls' entrance, and the item did pass. At the 2 hour, 1 minute, 9 second mark, the board then moved to item 5.10, a transfer of $50,000 for district-wide air conditioning. Trustee Wise asked whether these were individual units across the district in the hottest classrooms. Mr. Silver said the project would include approximately 10 units on the 4th floor of the high school and approximately 3 window units in each of the 3 elementary schools. President Orser then commented that a lot of parents would be happy to hear that, and the motion passed. At the 2 hour, 2 minute, 3 second mark, the board then moved to item 5.11, the transfer of $136,860 from the unused capital fund to replace the air conditioning system serving the George Fisher Middle School Guidance Office. Trustee Wise asked whether the 2 air conditioning projects were targeted to specific high heat areas and did not address the broader question of potentially closing the building. President Orser said the audit committee had discussed that roughly 95% of George Fisher Middle School was already covered and that the guidance area was one of the last remaining areas. Superintendent Plotkin said that it was not just about counselors, but also students who are in that space. He said that any area reaching 88 degrees would require people to be moved. Trustee Wise asked what percentage of classrooms at George Fisher Middle School had air conditioning and what the cost would be to expand that. Mr. Silver said about 90% of the classrooms had air conditioning. Trustee Wise thanked the administration, building administration, and facilities team. He noted that 2 years earlier, the board had been told that air conditioning all classrooms at George Fisher would cost more than $1 million. Superintendent Plotkin said moves like this are helpful and that a piecemeal approach to adding air conditioning to priority areas each year is reasonable, and the motion then passed. At the 2 hour, 5 minute, 59 second mark, the board moved into old business. Vice President Curzio brought up a comment that Elizabeth Alvarez had made at the previous board meeting about our board meetings being on Tuesdays and how it makes it harder for Town of Kent residents to attend town meetings. And he kind of went through the spiel. I went through this last time as well. This district serves 6 towns and 2 counties, and everyone has different board meetings. So that was basically the breakdown. And I'm running through that so quickly because for some reason I forgot to write this down. So I had to go back and listen to it because it's almost 10 o'clock at night and I'm tired and I need to go to bed. Anywho, he also brought up the electric bus mandate delay. It is being delayed for, I think, 5 years. And he thanked Senator Pete Harcum and Assembly members Beefan and Slater for successfully getting the project delayed. But, you know, it will rear its ugly head once again. So again, I'm sorry. I can't believe I forgot to write this down. I must have skipped right over old business when I rewatched it. I don't know what's going on with me. But anyway, after old business, we moved on to second open session and nobody wanted to say anything. Final board comments start at the 2 hour, 11 minute, 46 second mark. Trustee Torpy commented on the electric buses. He said Albany would likely take the 5-year delay and still not have a plan, and said the district should keep electric buses on its radar because it will have to deal with the issue at some point. Vice President Curzio then said that one World War II veteran had not been listed earlier in the night and that they had inadvertently omitted the name Francis J. Sprague. Vice President Curzio apologized for the omission and said that Francis J. Sprague was also a Carmel High School student who made the supreme sacrifice in World War II. Vice President Curzio then made a motion to retroactively include Francis J. Sprague in both Trustee Wise's earlier motion and the list of record for the official meeting minutes, and the motion passed. At the 2-hour, 14-minute mark, Vice President Curzio then brought up the police line of duty widow tax exemption that had been discussed earlier in the Audit Committee meeting. He said that the law was passed late the previous year and signed by Governor Hochul. He explained that it allows local governments and school districts in New York State to opt into a reduction on property taxes paid by surviving spouses of police officers killed in the line of duty. That reduction is done by reducing the assessment of the surviving spouse's home by up to 50%. Vice President Curzio said the Audit Committee was recommending the exemption to the full board. He said a public hearing would be required, similar to other tax exemptions the board had previously considered. He said the committee was recommending the maximum 50% exemption, in line with the other exemptions the board had passed. The committee recommendation was to schedule the public hearing for the next board meeting on June 9th, with the possibility of voting the same night. President Orser added that it was too late for the exemption to apply this year, but the goal was to get it on the books going forward. District Clerk Joanne Stevens said she would make sure it got on the agenda. At the 2-hour, 17-minute, 24-second mark, the board then moved toward executive session. President Orser read a motion from the board to recess into executive session for the purpose of receiving legal guidance on collective negotiations with the CTA pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law and a pending investigation. Trustee Wise asked for clarification before the vote. He questioned whether a pending investigation was one of the exemptions under the New York State Open Meetings Law. He said the corresponding exemption under Open Meetings Law relates to information about a current or future investigation or prosecution of a criminal offense that would imperil effective law enforcement if disclosed. President Orser attempted to revise the executive session language. Trustee Wise said legal guidance itself is not exempt from Open Meetings Law unless it pertains to a specific exemption. He said, quote, "I think it is really important. We have a tendency to be a little loose with our charging resolutions for executive session, and it is important that the public have confidence that we are not discussing things in executive session that they have a right to hear." There was additional back and forth about the language. President Orser ultimately put the motion up for a vote with this language. Quote, "May the Board of Education recess into executive session for the purpose of receiving legal guidance on collective negotiations with the CTA pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law and a pending current or future investigation." Trustee Wise requested a roll call vote, and the roll call vote was Vice President Curzio, yes. Trustee Douglas, yes. Trustee Grasso, yes. Trustee Magliano, yes. President Orser, yes, and Trustee Wise, no, without amendment. The motion carried and the board recessed into executive session. So that wraps up today's May 26, 2026 meeting recap. This episode covered the Audit Facilities and Operations Committee, the Special Education Support Services and Wellness Committee, and the full Board of Education meeting from that night. For full episodes, updates, and ways to connect, visit Linktree/Carmel Unfiltered. I'm Samantha Fulling. This is Carmel Unfiltered, my platform, my perspective. Until next time.